Welcome to another edition of Quaker State Shop Talk. I'm here with Regan Smith, driver of that number 7 Quaker State Advanced Auto Parts Chevrolet for Tommy Baldwin Racing, getting ready for the Quaker State 400 at Kentucky Speedway. And Regan, I know when a fan says a track has been repaved, they probably go, oh, that's got to be good. We're headed to Kentucky Speedway, been racing there since 2001. We're going there to a brand new surface. What are your thoughts on this brand new surface?
Well, I know from the fan standpoint, they hear that and they think, oh, this is going to be the best thing ever. From a driver and a crew standpoint, I'd say we kind of cringe every time we hear the word repave. And the only reason for that is because asphalt, as it weathers, as it ages, it allows us to race differently on the track. It allows the tire to grip the track differently, maybe wear out a little bit more. The rubber goes down a different way where it works up the racetrack, and you can get a high line on a lot of these places that we go. So one of the challenges that tracks are facing now, and I think that's been presented to them by the drivers in particular, is, hey, repave it, but make it old at the same time. How do you do that, but somehow make a way to make that happen? And I'll be curious to see the first time when we get to the Kentucky repave what that's like. I've heard they tried a lot of different sequences with the asphalt when they put it down, and I'm curious to see if that allows it to widen out a little bit quicker. A lot of times we go to a repave and it presents a challenge if the fast lane is on the bottom because there is so much grip, and sometimes that can make an interesting situation for the racing.
It's interesting you mentioned that, Regan, because I just recently had a conversation with Steve Swift. He's Vice President of Operations for Speedway Motorsports that own Kentucky Speedway, and he said that absolutely was one of their goals. In fact, they've used 3 different layers of asphalt, obviously the bottom surface being the base, but to try to accomplish this, it's almost like they've worked to try to make new asphalt old. Asphalt's almost gotten too good lately.
It seems weird, right? We try to make something brand new old again. I guess that's just the way the world's going right now, but it's cool to hear that that's what they're doing, just because I think it's going to help that track weather and get to that point that we wanted to get to a lot quicker. And there's no denying it was a rough, bumpy racetrack, and probably needed the repave. On top of the bumps, we had a little bit of an issue with weepers there.
And that was a big reason, big reason.
And the water can soak up through the asphalt and start running down it. So, they get that drainage in there, and that's better for the fans, because if we do have a situation where it's not raining but the track's leaking, it's hard to explain to somebody why you can't go out there and race because of that. So, I know the repaves, they've done a phenomenal job with them. They always come out, perfectly smooth and a really nice job. And I think from that standpoint, I'll be happy, because Kentucky was bumpy.
So Regan, not only did they do a repave at Kentucky Speedway, there was a little bit of configuration change. They've left 3 and 4 long. It's still 14 degrees of banking, still fairly wide, 74 feet wide. But they went down to turn 1 and 2 and increased that banking from 14 to 17. But the thing I found interesting, starting with the entrance of turn 1, they've narrowed turns 1 and 2 up 18 feet from 74 to 56. That's going to be interesting too.
I'm glad I'm sitting here right now, because I didn't know they had done that. Listening to that, 3 and 4 to me was a fun corner, and especially as it widened out and the wall line came into play last year. So I'm glad they left that alone. I think it's kind of it's got its own uniqueness, and there's no other mile and a half that feels like that. 1 and 2 was a narrow corner to begin with. I'm curious to see what it's like with 18 or 19 less feet of racing room there. It's going to be really narrow. With that said, when Kentucky changed hands years ago, they kind of moved that wall out, the inside wall out, and the sight lines were kind of tricky there for what you could see around the corner, and as you were running the bottom, coming up on the exit of the corner, you couldn't really see the wall to exit. So I'm hoping that it helps that out just a little bit by moving the track out just a little bit, as they've done. Banking's always a good thing. We love banking in the race cars. That never hurts anybody's feelings, so that'll certainly help the cars and possibly make that top side come in a little bit sooner at that end of the racetrack, because it never seemed like it really did at that end. I'm sure they did a nice job with it, and it'll be interesting to see how tight that turn 1 entrance really is when we get there.
Well, that's all about the new Kentucky Speedway on this edition of Quaker State Shop Talk.